Hey everybody. I just wanted to get on here and talk about Chris Rock's Netflix special, Selective Outrage. I'm one of those people. I'm actually a fan of Chris Rock, and I've been a fan of Chris Rock for years. I've always found his comedy to be smart. And if there's anything I can rock with, it's somebody who's smart and says things even when they're unpopular. And that's not to say I agree with everything that comes out of his mouth. I don't agree with everything that comes out of anybody's mouth. Um, but his comedy special and him making history in terms of a live stand up Netflix show. Shout out to you for making history and almost a year to date of that infamous slap. I am somebody that shit never set well with me. And like I was like a fan of Will Smith growing up or whatever, and I didn't dislike him or anything as I got older. But that was something that has never, like, I could not rock with the whole, oh, defend black women, stand up for black women, and that's what Will Smith was doing. No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. I don't know what the hell was wrong with him. But what I do know is that Chris Rock in that moment then was a class fucking act. And let me tell you why. Chris Rock could have taken that mic and thumped it on his head, tried to fight him. I'm willing to bet it would have been anybody but Chris Rock. Hell, before that, I would have bet that Chris Rock would have fought Will Smith for doing something like that to him at the Oscars. And he made that point in his special where he was like, "My mama taught me not to fight in front of white people." Yes, rule number one. Okay, you broke code, bruh, when you did that. That joke was whack. It was stupid. It was lame. And considering all the controversy that was around the Smiths, all the information we had about Jada Pinkett cheating on you, Will, that came from Jada, yeah, Chris Rock is right. That had nothing to do with him. Nothing. Okay? So I'm glad he finally said something. And for people sitting around like, oh, he's talking about, oh, he shouldn't be doing this. Oh, I stand with black women. No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't stand with me. Okay? So I don't want to hear this foolishness about Will Smith was defending his wife because she had alopecia. Do you really believe Chris Rock knew that woman had alopecia? No. Jada Pinkett has been rocking a shortcut her whole career. Okay? She has rocked it and she has rocked it well. You cannot even tell. I'm not saying that it doesn't have an effect on her, but the things that Chris Rock could have said that could have pissed you off, like Regina Hall talking about some Will Smith, come on up here with the bachelors because Jada's approved it. She laughed at that. Chris Rock could have gone really low, and we know he can go there. Anyway, but had Chris Rock fought Will Smith back, cursed him out, which we know he could do, from the microphone after he walked up there thinking he was playing, smacked him, sat down, and said, "Keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth," not once, but twice, from his seat. Chris Rock could have showed his entire ass on that stage. And you know what else? Will Packer, who directed the Oscars, that's something that we ain't gonna remember for time going on. It's the first time it was produced by a black director who actually did an excellent job. But the only thing we remember that night is Will Smith showing his ass. If Chris Rock would have reacted, that would have taken the moment away from Questlove, who produced that documentary, Summer of Soul, which I would suggest because it's real primary source material of black people who were performing in Harlem. At the same time, Woodstock, when people were up there getting high and dying of drug addictions, and the black people in Harlem who didn't pay for nothing, and black performers who are willing to give of themselves into their community in that moment, are giving to one another from performers and audience. And Chris Rock would have taken that moment away from him. He kept it together and he presented an Oscar for him. So when I hear these bullshit arguments about colorism around Potomac, and sure, okay, yes, you can have the bougie light skinned girl who argues and fights with everybody. Honestly, I saw that with Monique. When the Browner girls, Candace and Wendy, were jumping on Giselle and Robin's train and attacking her and calling her aggressive and dangerous and all these other things and the things they were doing to bully her before. That's what I'm talking about in terms of selective outrage. So shout out to Chris Rock for naming it that. When we start talking about Will Smith defending black women, let me get back to this. People are, oh yeah, he was down in Jada Pinkett Smith and then he went in on Meghan Markle. One, he's a comedian. If you don't like it, keep flipping. Two, since when are Jada Pinkett Smith and Meghan Markle the two black women that represent black women? Yes, my reaction was the same, especially when I saw that Oprah interview with Meghan Markle. And I felt like if Oprah throws her one more softball to say this happened to me because I was black, and the level of shock that she had was, it wasn't confusing to me. It was a different kind of annoying to me because I spent time in California and she was a biracial girl with a black mother. So, yes, I felt like she should know better because the mother does most of the training. Okay? Who was walking around, not simply light skinned, but not being treated like, I'm a spare the word, but in ways that she would not have been treated in any other state around this country. Okay? So, for her to get over there with the people who colonized the United States and began to enslave us, take us from West Africa and bring us to North America and enslave us and force breed us, and then be shocked by the same people who helped carve up Africa and steal all their jewels that you also had the opportunity to wear off the blood and backs, not only of enslaved people who helped fund this empire known as America, and the British Empire that stretched all the way down to South Africa. Yes, I thought she was clueless as fuck too. Period. I couldn't even watch that Harry and Meghan special because after watching that with Oprah, I said, girl, well, the institution and the family, well, I thought they would want a person of color. You would think they would want, no, I wouldn't think that. That's what we think. We know that we're good to be in front of other people who are of African descent in Africa so they can see people who look like us, so on and so forth. Girl, that happened to you because you were black and because they're racist. Period. Hard stop. I'm glad you finally got it. But the shock for me, I wasn't here for it. And Chris Rock would have said that about any black person sitting on TV talking crazy like that. Then you got Jada Pinkett Smith, who after her husband walked his ass up on the Oscar stage, not the Source Awards, okay, not the Soul Train Awards, not the Vibe Awards, no, the fucking Oscars, and smacked the shit out of Chris Rock. Let's not pretend like Will Smith didn't laugh at the joke. Jada rolled her eyes, looked at him, and he, in a trance, walked up there and smacked the shit out of Chris Rock. Tell me how me, sitting here as a black woman, and she is laughing at him hitting, her husband, hitting this man in the face in front of all those white people. And in many ways, and I don't throw this word around a lot, emasculated Chris Rock. And she laughed. Tell me how that is defending me as a black woman as I sit here. Tell me. Because when we talk about defending black women in the workspace and the way in which we are scrutinized and yes, accused of being aggressive and yes, mistreated and talked about and some of which we have done to each other. But that's not who I'm worried about. Jada Pinkett Smith, yes, is black and will always be black. Meghan Markle, I hope you know now you are black and you will always be black. But what I am saying is, when we talk about standing with black women, I'm talking about the black women who have either been too afraid to call the police because they know they mistreat black men and will do things like kill them on the spot, but those same black men that they're not calling the police on are abusing them and their kids violently in the home. And then they lose their kids and their home because in self-defense have murdered their husbands and their partners. Yeah. When I'm talking about standing with black women, that's what I'm talking about. The kind of laws that when it happens to black women, nobody rallies around us. I'm talking about Piper Lewis, who was a minor and who was being trafficked by a black man in Iowa and is now confined because she murdered the man who raped her over and over again and who was pimping her out. And in an act of self-defense as a minor is now serving time and is now confined based on this till they can figure out what to do with the fact that she was trafficked first. What came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm talking about Crystal Kaiser, and you can Google these people, who was a minor who was being trafficked by a white man over and over again. And finally, after being abused and trafficked, she killed him. And she is still a baby, a 19-year-old. I think she's about 19-year-old. Don't quote, 19 years old now. Don't quote me. But underage when she went to prison for his murder. When Centoya Brown finally got out, she had served all that time in the Tennessee jail. And I know because I wrote to the governor. Now, I'm not saying I wasn't one of hundreds of thousands of people who did it, but I'm just saying, I wrote to the Tennessee governor and I made a point that this would not have happened to a young white girl. She would not have been asked to say, hey, like, I murdered a man at 15 years old who I had slept with. And I use that loosely because she was 15 and being trafficked, pimped out. And she woke up and in a trauma response killed this white man she was sleeping beside. And his family was going for her life in prison, not asking why this man who was engaged was sleeping with a child. You see what I mean? So when I start talking about standing with black women, I'm talking about legit shit. That was some fuck shit that happened. And defending that shit says a whole hell of a lot about other people, particularly YouTubers who sat up on YouTube. We still talking about this? I mean, so what? Chris Rock got slapped. So what? Chris Rock got slapped. I don't understand. And then when it comes to bullshit like Potomac, no, that's colorism. That's colorism because they got into a bunch of chicks arguing. And Candace calling Giselle out last night. You know what? The bitch deserved it. And what? And what? How are we better off as a result? Exactly. Miss me with the bullshit. Okay. So anyway, with this comedy special, when he talked about having them people kick out his daughter at a school, first of all, as a teacher in independent schools, and particularly in New York, I know other school too well. Not going to explain how. And honestly, there are two ways that could have gone because this little girl had money, obviously, by being his daughter. That was the best fucking thing he could have done. Because if she would have gotten the impression that she was like the other white girls and it's not going to happen to me because I'm not like the others, she would have been fucking impossible to deal with. Chris Rock was absolutely right. And then let her get home and was like, I told you about them white people. He said, and they didn't know it, her or her mother didn't know it until now with this live Netflix special. And let me tell you something. She would have been impossible and she would have gotten in some trouble she really wouldn't have been able to get out of. That kind of stuff is really normal. But that's not the point. The point is the consequences are not the same for black kids. And he did her a world of favors. And they will do that. They will bring in lawyers when you try to say something to their kids and all this other stuff. And I'm like, what is this, a high-end babysitting service or education system? Like, your kids get punished, but at the point in which, and they don't really even punish kids in private school. So at the point in which a kid starts getting arrogant like that, let me tell you something. Her father did the best fucking thing he could have done. So shout out to you, Chris Rock. All right, teachers are rooting for you everywhere. Anyway, so then Chris Rock talks about the Will Smith slap. And I was watching it with my sister and I was just like, I hope he does the mic drop after this. And he did. That was his last set. He was like, first of all, y'all can't tell on TV. Okay, but Will Smith is much bigger than me. All right, he played Muhammad Ali. He was like, I play a crackhead in New Jack City. Okay? He was like, people are asking, did it hurt? He was like, it still hurts. He was like, that shit was not about me. He said, first of all, it's a bitch ass thing to walk up to somebody that you know you bigger than and slap them. He was like, that's a bitch move. He was like, first of all, when all that shit went down, he said, you mad about the fact that your wife, he said, everybody in this room, everybody in this room has been cheated on. He was like, the difference is we haven't been interviewed by the person who cheated on us in front of a camera and asked how we feel about the fact that we suck somebody's dick. Like, I mean, that was real. Like, Will Smith, you didn't smack August Alsina. He was like, they were calling your wife a predator. They were talking about how sick y'all were. He said, I called and I checked on you. And you know what? I believe it. I believe it. Because people will turn on the person who does right by them quicker than they ever will their enemies. And I don't understand that psychology, but I have certainly seen people like that. And he was like, everybody was calling you a bitch. Everybody. The View was even calling you a bitch. The Talk was calling you a bitch. The Breakfast Club was calling you a bitch. He said, I was going to fuck your wife. I called you to ask how you were doing. And then you wait to get on the stage, the Oscars, and smack the shit out of me? He said, you damn right. No, I didn't hit him back. Yeah, he's bigger. But you know what? My mama taught me not to fight in front of white people. I said, yes, God, Chris Rock, you did it a fucking again. I am so here for it. Anyway, but I like Chris Rock and I'm here for it. So that's just a little bit of my commentary. But yeah, I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.